Imagine walking into your own home, hoping for reunion, but fearing disappointment. That's exactly what Ajay experienced. The doors stood ajar, a physical reminder of absence and uncertainty. It's odd how something as simple as an unlocked door can ignite hope, yet deepen frustration. Now, you might ask, why didn't AJ call out for his wife? Here's the setup. After days of waiting and emotional exhaustion, he simply couldn't brace himself for another letdown or a confrontation. The unlocked rooms, the untouched calmness, these were clues, like silent witnesses, hinting that Deborah was still missing. Psychologists call this phenomenon ambiguous loss. It's when someone is physically absent but psychologically present, keeping you in a state of suspended grief. For Ajay, every room was loaded with meaning. Each item, her purse, her lifeless phone spoke of her, but gave no answers. Let me paint you a picture. Aj clutching keys, collapsing in despair, and questioning his own sanity. Have you ever screamed so loudly in your mind that the silence feels deafening? That's the torment of not knowing where your loved one is, or if they'll ever walk through that door again. In that moment, Aj wasn't just missing his wife, he was grappling with the fear that he might be losing himself. So, what do you do when your world falls apart? For Ajay, it was about holding on to the smallest routines. As dawn broke, the sound of rats in the kitchen became his alarm clock. He shuffled through his morning checking pots, boiling water, brushing his teeth. These acts might sound mundane, but they're actually survival mechanisms, what psychologists call behavioral anchors, tiny rituals that tether us to normalcy. Now, you might be thinking, how does making tea help with heartbreak? Here's the conflict routine offers comfort, but it also sharpens the ache of absence. Every step, from the kitchen to the bathroom, reminded Aj of Deborah's missing presence. Even the toothbrush, dangling from his mouth, became a symbol of his childlike helplessness. Trauma experts call this dissociation, when the mind tries to detach from pain by focusing on the physical. For Ajay, boiled water and a towel were his only shields against the chaos in his heart. Let me tell you, it's not weakness. It's a way to endure the unendurable. He listened to the kettle hiss, clung to the order of things, and in that fragile structure, found a sliver of strength to keep going. Sometimes, survival is just about making it to the next morning. Let's talk about neighbors, the unsung heroes in times of crisis. Enter Ialea, the bread seller. She noticed the open gate, sensed trouble, and waited patiently for answers. Her presence set up an unexpected lifeline for Ajay. Now, you might wonder, what difference can a neighbor make? Here comes the conflict. Aj, scarred and broken from police brutality, felt exposed under her gaze. Those marks on his body weren't just wounds, they were trauma markers, physical reminders of suffering. But Ialea didn't recoil. Instead, she listened. In psychology, this is called bearing witness. It's when someone provides validation simply by being present and acknowledging your pain. It's more powerful than we often realize. She left a loaf of bread more than food. It was a gesture of hope, a token of solidarity. Have you ever had someone step in quietly with just what you needed in your darkest hour? That's the magic of community. Sometimes, healing begins not with answers, but with the kindness of those who see and hear us. Reporting a missing person sounds straightforward, right? Not for Aj. When he walked into the police station, the same place that had recently jailed him, the setup was already fraught. The officer's comment comparing Aj to a madman reveals a deep-seated stigma about mental health and trauma. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Why was someone as educated as Aj, a first-class mechanical engineering graduate, left without options? Here's the conflict. In many societies, meritocracy takes a backseat to nepotism and gatekeeping. Even his academic excellence didn't shield him from exclusion. This institutional failure is known as social stratification, where access is determined not by ability, but by connections, family name, or wealth. For Aj, this meant missing out on scholarships and jobs, despite being top of his class. Let me share a truth. systems often fail the most diligent among us. Ajay's recourse was to invest all he had into farming, using modern techniques, a nod to his resilience and adaptability. If you've ever felt locked out, not for lack of talent but lack of privilege, Ajay's story is your story too. Here's the climax. Aj finally seeks help from the DPO, the divisional police officer. Notice the setup. Ajay arrives prepared, dressed sharply, projecting confidence. This is what psychologists call impression management, a conscious strategy to counter previous mistreatment. But the conflict isn't over. The DPO is uncomfortable, possibly embarrassed by how his officers treated Aj. Ajay, however, flips the script. He calmly explains his ordeal, then delivers an envelope, likely a formal request or tip to expedite the case. Here's where two technical terms shine. Institutional inertia, the tendency of systems to resist change, and transactional negotiation, using social cues and incentives to prompt action. Now you might be thinking, isn't it risky to confront authority? Absolutely. But Ajay's resilience and resourcefulness drive him to demand respect and urgency. He doesn't just hope for results, he advocates for himself, ensuring Deborah's search begins at once. Let me ask you, when was the last time you had to fight for fairness, even when the odds were stacked? Ajay's journey shows that sometimes the only way out is through by insisting your voice deserves to be heard. And so, with a handshake, the search is activated. In a world of closed doors and broken systems, sometimes courage is the key that finally gets things moving.